Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to our next lesson. And so today we're going to be following up on the second part of the negative numbers unit. So today we're going to be talking about multiplication and division of negative numbers. Alright, first let's talk about, I'll give you a quick recap of negative numbers again. So like last time, let's draw our little number line. So negative numbers are any numbers that are less than 0. So to the left of this number line. So -1, -2, -3, etc. Right? So everything less than 0 is a negative number. So we talked about the addition and subtraction of negative numbers. So, but today, first let's talk about multiplication. So, multiplication of non-negative numbers, so positive numbers, it's essentially the same thing as what we're going to talk about right now, right? So let's say 5 times 5 times 5. We know that's 25. Now let's say -5 times -5. Your first instinct might be, oh, since 5 times 5 is 25, -5 times -5 is -25. But it's not actually, it's also 25. So why is that? Well, when you have two negatives, when you're multiplying two negatives together, they actually result in a positive product. A positive product, right? So let's give another example. Let's say -7 times -3. That will be 21. So the negative results in a positive. Two negatives, I should say. But let's say we have 7, +7, times -3. What would that be? Well, if you have a negative multiplied with a positive, it actually comes out to be a negative number. So in this case, it would be -21. So let's just talk about the rules of multiplication of negative numbers. Two negatives multiplied together result in a positive. But one negative multiplied by a positive results in a negative. See how that works? So that's what you basically need to know when you're multiplying negative numbers. Two negatives is going to equal a positive, and one negative is going to equal a negative. But hold on, you might be wondering, what if I have 3 negatives? So -5 times -2 times, let's go -1, just for simplicity's sake. Well, there's actually a second part to that little trick I just showed you. It's not necessarily 2 negatives which equal a positive. It's an even number of negatives equal a positive. An odd number of negatives equal a negative. So this has 1, 2, 3 negative numbers. This is an odd number. Therefore, the answer to this is going to be a negative number. So then we just do the numbers as if the sign wasn't there. So 5 times 2, 10, times 1 is 10. So this would be negative 10. But with that same question, let's say negative 5 times negative 2 times positive 1. That would be, this is an even number because 1, 2 negatives. So an even number of an even number of negatives is going to result in a positive value. So 5 times 2, 10, and you add the positive, so it's positive 10. Let's go on to division now. This is essentially the opposite of that. So let's give another example, right? Negative 10 divided by negative 5. Put the brackets on there just so we're not confused. Now we know that 10 divided by 5 is 2, right? But what is negative 10 divided by negative 5? You have two negative numbers here. Well, let's recall that two negative numbers multiplied result in a positive number, right? Well, two negative numbers, the only way for two negative numbers, or let's think of it like this. What multiplied by negative 5 multiplied by x is equal to negative 10? Let's think of it like that. Well, like I said before, this is a negative number, right? So that means this has got to be a positive number. Therefore, a negative divided by negative is going to be a positive. This will be positive 2. And keeping up with that example, let's say we have a negative, let's go with 10 again. Negative 10. But this time we're dividing by just positive 5. What would that be? Again, turning this back into multiplication. Positive 5 multiplied by, multiplied by a certain number is equal to negative 10. Let's think of it like that. Well, this is a negative number, and since this is a positive number, this has to be negative. Since, as we recall, that an odd number of numbers that you're multiplying together result in a product that is negative. Therefore, if you are dividing a negative number by a positive number, this answer is going to have to be negative. And in this case, it's negative 2. And those rules, as I said before, it works in the same way. So it's going to be easy questions. Let's go negative 8 divided by negative 4 divided by negative 2. Okay? And again, let's think about this, right? So, in multiplication, as I said, an odd number of negative numbers is going to result in a negative answer, right? Right. But in this case, let's go negative 8 divided by 4. These are this is going to be negative sorry, not negative. This is going to be positive 2. But this divided by negative 2 is going to result in negative 1. See how that works? So that means if you have a odd number of negative numbers that you are dividing by each other, you're going to end up with a negative number. But let's say let's use the same question, but you divide this by positive 2. Well, this is going to stay the same. It's going to be 2. But 2 divided by positive 2, well, those aren't even negative numbers at this point. So this is just going to be 1. Positive 1. But let's say you have a negative in the middle here. So negative 8 by 4, that's going to be negative 2. But a negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive, right? Positive 1. Your answer still stays the same. So an even number of negative numbers that you're dividing by each other is going to result in a positive value, and an odd number of negative numbers is going to result in a negative value for your answer. Alright, so that was negative numbers multiplication and division. Stay tuned for upcoming lessons.